Hey, everybody, welcome to FL Teams Live. We are here with our weekly NFL Power Ranking show for round one of the postseason for the playoffs. It's playoff time in the NFL, and all three Florida teams are in. With me this week is the king of FL Teams, Isaac Edelman. Thank you for joining me, Isaac.
Yeah, of course, man. Excited as always to be here on FL Teams. And what better time to talk football heading into the NFL playoffs? Specifically, I know it's not the Super Bowl, but round one, that means the most football is being played this week for the playoff teams.
Yeah, and a Florida team is going every single day, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We'll get to those games in a second. But first, our newest partner is revolutionizing the world of sports betting and fan engagement by making sports fandom profitable. That company is Symbol, the stock market for sports. Download the Symbol app, that's SIMBULL, and use the code FLTEAMS to receive a free team stock valued up to $150 upon signing up. Again, Symbol. It's right below me, it's spelled out. And the promo code is about to come. There it is, FL Teams. And get a free team stock. Thank you to our partners over at Symbol. So without further ado, we had a new marching orders this week with the power rankings. It was rank the teams, disregard their records in the regular season, everything else. Of course, you know, that's the basis for how we know how good they are, but still,
Yeah.
rank them by their chance of winning the Super Bowl 1 to 14. So it made a little difference in my rankings the way I laid them out. But let's reveal the FL team combined composite rankings going into round one of the playoffs. Starting with number 14, Seattle Seahawks. They did not get higher than 13th on any individual ballot. Number 13, the Miami Dolphins crawled their way into the playoffs and just barely crawled out of last place on the FL team's ballot. Number 12, another Florida team, the 8-9 Tampa Bay Bucs. We'll talk about them, of course. Barely above them is their opening round opponent, the number 11 Dallas Cowboys. Maybe a little lower than some people would expect. At number 10, the New York Giants. They're one spot behind their opponent, the number 9 Minnesota Vikings. Number 8 is the Baltimore Ravens. I will preface it by saying there was news that Lamar Jackson appears to be unlikely to play this weekend. That came out after these ballots were submitted. I might drop him a spot or two, honestly, after that news came out. Number 7, the highest ranked Florida team going back to the last few weeks of the regular season, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers, who play the Jaguars. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Number 5, on a bye week and still only coming in at number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 3, the highest NFC team, the San Francisco 49ers. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. And number 1, the team that plays the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills. Before we get into the individual games, Isaac, is there anything crazy that jumps out at you out of these rankings of the top 14?
Well, actually, most of these average rankings were different than my personal rankings. Obviously, the Ravens ranking changes. Obviously, like you said, we submitted this before that news came out. Obviously, without Lamar Jackson, the Ravens' chances of winning decreases by a lot. That's the case with most teams losing their starting quarterbacks. But, hey, I mean, no game is easy for any team in the playoffs, but I mean, when you look at it on paper, the Ravens are facing the Bengals, and it just doesn't look good for them to even escape the first round. Another thing I did want to bring up is the Dolphins. I had them at 14. You had them at 8, I believe, for the average.
11.
11 or 8? 11.
They were 13th in the composite rankings. I had them 11.
Okay, 11. Yeah. So
obviously,
obviously, it's a struggle. Right? I'm a Dolphin fan. We know Jeremiah here on FL Teams has discussed it a lot. the Dolphins crawled into the playoffs, but you go to like week 8, they look like a top 5 team. Matter of fact, they should be like 3 on this list. But things are not looking good now. Obviously, with Tua injured and Skylar Thompson, I just think that the Seahawks have a way better chance to escape the first round than the Dolphins. Again, the Dolphins are facing the Bills, who we have at number 1 in these power rankings. So those are really the 2 games I want to discuss. The other rankings, kind of easy, right? Obviously, instead of having to rank all 32 NFL teams, this week it was easier for us, but still kind of hard. But if we're judging it on the fact that these so-and-so teams will get past the first round and these so-and-so teams should be ranked higher because they're more likely to win the Super Bowl, these rankings are correct. I mean, the Chiefs and Bills are kind of 1A and 1B to me. I think it's hard for you to do 1 and 2, but yeah, these rankings were good, man.
Yeah, we'll dive into a couple of our unique rankings, but let's start Saturday's games. We got 2 games on Saturday. Seattle at San Francisco. San Francisco is a 9.5-point favorite. We don't need to talk about that game. I think we all expect San Francisco to come out ahead, as do the odds makers. But the Florida game, prime time Saturday night. I was kind of surprised that this game got that spot, but it is a Los Angeles team as well. But the Chargers going to Jacksonville. The Jags are 2-point underdogs. And in our combined rankings, we had the Chargers 6, the Jaguars 7, which is kind of like we whichever one of these teams win, we know they've got a tough second round opponent. They're going to be going to Kansas City or, Buffalo, or I guess they could go to Cincinnati also. But one of those 3, it's not really, again, I'm assuming the Bills and or Bengals will win. When I say that, it's unlikely that the Jags will get to host another playoff game. So this is kind of the big one, and there's a lot riding on this on both sides. A lot of people are saying Staley's job might be at risk still if he doesn't win this game for the Chargers. I think on paper, it sure looks like the Chargers should win, but something about the way that they play in big games and the way they're coached versus the way the Jaguars have stood up in big games and the way their coach has a pedigree of coaching in big games. It's the closest game in the Vegas odds, and it's the toughest one for me to prognosticate. What are you looking at here, Isaac?
Not tough at all. I'm gonna get on the back of the FL team's family. I'm going Jacksonville here, man. Look, I'm not just saying that because I want to be FL teams friendly, but hey, I really think that the Jaguars, the way they've been playing this year, the fact that they had the worst record in the NFL last year, and the fact that they are divisional champions this year in the AFC South, I just think that this season is going to eventually come to an end, but it can't end this soon. They made the playoffs for a reason. They're going to get past the first round. And honestly, the Chargers are probably, besides the Dolphins, maybe the Ravens, I don't know. They might be the weakest AFC opponent. As it stands, the Chargers, they've been good this year. That's how they are in the playoffs. But I think that last year we saw more flashes from this team, way more flashes. This year it's kind of been on and off, but the Jaguars have really been on the whole way. And this will be Trevor Lawrence's first playoff game, prime time at home. I really think Jacksonville's home field advantage will play a factor as well. Look, it just comes down to this. Can Jacksonville get going in their run game? Travis Etienne, also his first playoff game. This is a very young Jacksonville team. I expect Christian Kirk to do well. I expect the Jaguars defense, Rashawn Jenkins, Josh Allen, they've been good. But it comes down to this running game. Travis Etienne is very inconsistent. He cannot afford to lose the ball. We know he holds on to that ball very loosely. But look, the Chargers for me are not scary at all. And the Jaguars defense, I think, can shut down this Chargers offense. I know Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have had some great games this year, but the Jaguars just seem to me like a team that's going to fight so hard for their fans because their fans haven't seen this success since Blake Bortles, UCF legend, by the way. Have to bring that up for Florida. But yeah, look, I'm going to go on the back of FL teams here. Give me Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jags have won 5 straight, and a lot of their young players, they're used to this big spotlight. Trevor Lawrence has played bigger
Yes.
games than this. As
Exactly.
has ETN, as has Trayvon Walker. They're used to
Yeah.
big, championship games. And you're right. Duval County was rocking for that regular season finale against the Titans. So I do think the Jags will have a lot going for them. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how this game starts.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers are capable of lighting up the scoreboard against literally any team. They've had some injuries, some inconsistency. If they come out hot, I don't know that the Jaguars are going to be able to battle their way back.
Yeah.
But
But hey, as it stands, the Jaguars have made it far enough, in my opinion. They really have nothing on the line here. The Chargers
yeah,
do. In addition to the head coaching job, you kind of want to see strides from Justin Herbert. I know he's still young, but last year they had a chance. They didn't do good with that chance. This year, they also have a chance. I mean, they were in a very tough AFC West and they made the playoffs, so that's impressive. But yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers have way more on the line than the Jaguars because the Jaguars just needed to have a winning record. They didn't just do that. They won their division and made the playoffs. Well, when you win the division, make the playoffs. You get my point. When you have the worst record in the NFL the year before, I don't know, maybe just add at least 2 more wins to your record. They did way more than that. So credit to the Duval County team.
Yeah, and you're right. And look, I do think there's a decent chance Staley is gone if they lose this game. And they might be in the Sean Payton sweepstakes, which is growing every single second, it seems. Our first game on Saturday features a familiar team. The Miami Dolphins travel to Buffalo. They are 13-point dogs at this point in time. I think our biggest difference here in our power rankings, number 1 versus number 13. I just keep trying to go in my head. It's already been announced Tua is not playing, which is good. I think most people agree from a human standpoint he shouldn't be playing. It's in Buffalo. We saw Miami with Tua battle Buffalo to a real close game. We did that game live, broadcast on FL Teams. This doesn't seem like the same Dolphins team. Obviously, it does have a different quarterback. I'm just grasping at straws here, trying to think: is there any way that the Dolphins pull out a victory in this game?
There's no way. There's just no way, especially in a playoff game. The Bills are going to be clicking on all cylinders. Really, the only way to beat the Bills in the playoffs is, number one, only one team can slow down the Bills, in my opinion. And that would be a Super Bowl matchup with the 49ers because no defense in the playoffs is as good as the 49ers. And I honestly think the 49ers defense is the only team that can limit the Bills. So if you can't limit the Bills, you have to do what the Chiefs did in the AFC championship game last year, or AFC divisional game because they played the Bengals. The Chiefs put up not just the same amount of points as the Bills, but more, right, in that AFC divisional matchup last year. That's what the Dolphins could do, and it's impossible. Even with Tua, it would be impossible. But this week, you're with Skylar Thompson, who is a backup quarterback. And I don't know, maybe being a backup quarterback isn't that bad. Just ask Brock Purdy. But seriously, Skylar Thompson is no Brock Purdy. Skylar Thompson is one of the worst backups. And
Steve's just hating.
Mickey Purdy. But hey, honestly, I mean, what needs to go right? Like, even if Raheem Mostert runs for 200 yards, it's not enough, right? This will be Skylar Thompson's third career start. This will be the toughest team he faces. This will be his first playoff game. This guy is going to be under a lot of pressure. He doesn't deserve that pressure. Like, the Dolphins are mismatched, right? They are at a total disadvantage. I just don't know what to say, Jeff. Like, there's no way we win this game. Obviously, if we win this game, this will be one of the biggest upsets in playoff history just due to the fact that the Bills are home. The Bills have a way more talented roster. The Dolphins are coming off tons of losses. And Skylar Thompson, I mean, If he plays well, that will be one of the most surprising things, right? Brock Purdy, we got over that hump, but Skylar Thompson against the Bills? I don't know. Let me ask you, because, I'm the Dolphin fan here. Jeff, I mean, what needs to be working for the Dolphins? It really needs to be everything, every aspect, special teams, offense, and defense, plus more, right? Like, you need Josh
Yeah.
Allen to throw turnovers. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is they need the Bills to lay an egg. That's the Josh Allen needs to. Josh Allen does have a tendency to make some maybe over aggressive throws that he shouldn't make. Now that also leads to a lot of big plays, but in a single game situation, if he makes a lot of mistakes, it leaves the door open. If the Dolphins look, the Patriots played the Bills pretty close. I
Yes,
mean, the
they
Bills
did.
had 2 kick return touchdowns and started getting a lot of picks at the end of that game. A lot of people were saying it in the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter. The Patriots were outplaying the Bills. They just had 2 kick returns for a
Yes.
touchdown. That's the kind of thing the Dolphins need. Just obviously avoid any turnovers. They need to control the ball. I mean, really, limit the amount of time Buffalo has on the field.
Yeah.
And dominate special teams. I mean, kind of thing in a game like this that can win is a blocked punt. You just things like that, just stolen
But
possessions.
you know what's even worse? It's looking like Raheem Mostert has an injury and he's going to be out this week.
Yeah,
So
if he's out,
it's
I
just
just don't see a path.
like last week. First of all, we didn't do too good against the Jets. We did terrible. We
No,
snuck out with the win,
ugly.
all field goals for both teams. But how did we get into field goal range? The run game. Mostert and Wilson were doing so good. The problem with that is Thompson is now starting this week, and besides practice during the week, he didn't get a chance to air the ball out to Tyreek Hill or Waddle. Like he's going to need to do that this week. I don't care if the run game's going; you still need to keep up with the Bills, and he's going to have to launch that ball deep. It just, I'm not going to say it's not in his guts. We just don't know at the NFL level. So, look, we're wishing for the best, but I think Dolphin fans have low expectations for this game. So if it's close, that could make for an exciting game because I don't think us Dolphin fans will expect that. And that will create some stress for Bills fans, believe me. But let me ask you this before we move on. You think the Bills come out firing or they run the ball knowing that they're in a more comfortable situation against us?
I think they come out and run their game. I don't think they're worried about or going to assume anything as far as the Dolphins. I think the Bills run their offense no matter who they're playing.
Okay.
I think they'll come out firing. And look, I don't see a realistic way unless the Bills just refuse to win the game. That it happens, but this is why we play the games.
Well, there's a possibility that Mike Glennon comes in and wins the game, but I don't want to discuss that.
I would if Mike Glennon comes in and leads a comeback over the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, I'll do something insane, asinine. I don't know what, but I'll come up with something. That's
all right. If that happens, I'm clipping that, and we are gonna.
Yeah, I'll do something ridiculous.
I'll put like a TikTok and say the most liked comment is what Jeff has to do.
Yeah, within reason and legalities, please. Let's move on. I'm just going to briefly touch because we're highlighting the Florida teams here, but the other Sunday games, the Giants go to Minnesota in a game that, this was a game that was decided on a 61-yard field goal by, I believe, FAU legend.
And he lived on my street. I found that out a few weeks ago.
Nice. So close game in the regular season. I expect the same thing. Personally, I had the Giants number 9 on my power rankings and the Vikings number 10 on my power rankings this week, which tells you I think one of these teams is going to win, which I'm putting the Giants as that team, but I don't think either team has much of a chance to really make a Super Bowl push. I am going to ask you very last question after we do the Bucs game for your Super Bowl prediction. I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'll give you a few minutes to think about that.
Okay.
Then we got Baltimore at Cincinnati. The Bengals were 8.5-point favorites, and I think that was kind of before the news broke that it would be, I forget the exact wording, but it sounds very unlikely that Lamar Jackson will play. I would expect that line to grow a lot more. Full disclosure, I had the Bengals way higher. I'm the only person who put the Bengals number 2 on my ballot. I think they're a coin flip with the Bills to be the best team. I think both of them, I like them better than the Chiefs. And by the way, since we didn't really touch, just to put a closing bow on the NFC teams other than our last game here, everyone had the 49ers above the Eagles as their top NFC team on their ballots. So to address Steve's earlier comment that I threw up there. All right, the Monday night game, which from a competitive perspective, I will say I would hate playing the Monday night game.
Yeah. But you know what? I think this is the game everyone's looking forward to, and I think this is the perfect pick for a Monday night game. I think this is America's team versus Tom Brady. You always have to watch in the playoffs. I think this is going to be a very discussed game, right? It may not be exciting, but it's going to be discussed heavily.
Steve doesn't know that the NFC isn't as good as the AFC. That's all. Jalen Hurts put up a lot of points against those Giants backups playing for nothing, huh? Yes. So let's go back to the Bucs game here. The Bucs are terrible. They're a terrible football team. I'll give you my hot take first because everyone knows you're gonna side with the Florida team here, Isaac. But I've talked all year about the Bucs being terrible. They're a bad football team. I had them ranked number 12 in my power rankings out of 14, and I had the Dallas Cowboys number 13 because I think the Bucs are going to beat the Cowboys on Monday night. I think the Bucs are a terrible football team. I don't think they belong in the playoffs. They won the division. But I also said, like 2 months ago, watch the NFC South team with a losing record go in, host the Cowboys, and beat them in the first round because it's in the Cowboys' DNA. And I know the game didn't really end up meaning anything, but they looked awful with their starters in against Washington in that last game. Dallas just – I'll give a shout out here to I've had this hunch that the Bucs will end up beating the Cowboys for a while. And I personally hope I'm wrong for the record. But I will give credit to another voter in this poll who said the Cowboys are either going to blow the Bucs out real early, it's going to be a blowout, or it's going to be close. And if it's close, the Bucs are going to win the game. And I think he's absolutely correct because it's in the Cowboys' DNA to blow games. They do not know how to finish. They do not have confidence, and they shouldn't. Meanwhile, the Bucs, they've just been handed chance after chance at end of games, and they think they're destined to win these close games late. I think the only chance the Cowboys have is get a big lead early and sit on it. I think they are by far a more talented team. If I'm ranking these teams 1 to 14 on their abilities and what they showed in the regular season, I'd have the Cowboys probably 6th, maybe 7th. But no, if I'm ranking them in their chances of winning the Super Bowl, 13th is where they are because I don't think they get past the first game. So there's my hot take.
I refuse to believe that the Bucs are going to lose this game. There's no way they lose this game. Like, the Cowboys, I'm not going to call them frauds because they're not at all. But they've kind of had some fluke wins. I don't know. They were very impressive against the Colts. They scored all of those points in just one quarter. But that talent has taken a drop. Especially, like you said, that last game against the Commanders. In my opinion, the Bucs are not going to get past the second round. And yes, you could not argue. I mean, you could, but the Cowboys are way more talented than the Bucs. I just don't see the Bucs losing. It's a playoff game at home. Tom Brady wants to win. That could only go so far because his talent has taken a drop this year. Plus, the O-line's a little banged up. The defense is a little banged up. But I just don't see the Cowboys winning this game. I think it's going to be very close and low scoring. And I think Tom Brady is going to probably have a game-winning drive like he always does in the final minute. So, look, I expect to see a low-scoring game, but I just refuse to believe it. And, Jeff, I know you said this. The Cowboys are more talented, but I refuse to believe that the Cowboys can win this game. It just doesn't seem possible because the Bucs are not a scary force, but they have Tom Brady, and it seems like the Bucs are handed chances to win, and the Cowboys seem like a team that would hand an opponent chances to win. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Dak Prescott. I don't know what he has to play for, but it just seems I don't know. The Cowboys just don't have that mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and I agree with the comment that I put up there from Steve. McCarthy is the worst coach in the playoffs. And this is talking about a guy who did win a Super Bowl as a coach, but I agree. I think he's the worst coach. I think his team is the least prepared. I'm still infuriated from a coaching perspective at his team last year in the playoffs, not knowing to give the umpire the ball to spot it, so they couldn't get a final playoff. That's just not something that can happen at the NFL level. I coach 8U football, and we knew how to get 2 plays off in a hurry up by getting the ball spotted and lining up like that. How does an NFL team?
Well,
Bit
because
smarter than my 8-year-olds.
Jeff, you're a better coach, okay?
Well, apparently I just prepare them a little better for game situations than an NFL coach preparing his team for the playoffs. It just, that right there just set me off last year when that happened. And Mike McCarthy, by the way, he loses this game. I think the Cowboys might move on and they might jump into the Sean Payton sweepstakes as well.
I have a problem with the Cowboys. It just seems like they are so talented, but they can't get anywhere in the playoffs, let alone to the playoffs. I mean, I'm impressed they made it this year. The Eagles, the Giants are going to be good for the next few years. I mean, the Cowboys, I think, every team's only getting older, but the Cowboys, in my eyes, are getting old. I mean, Dak Prescott's getting up there. Micah Parsons is probably their youngest player. But their wide receiver core, besides CeeDee Lamb, I think they still need 1 or 2 more pieces. And their coaching staff, I think, needs to be completely revamped. And their front office, because no one wants to see Jerry Jones. But the point of the matter is,
that's like the root of the problem, I think.
The NFC East is very talented. I don't see how the Cowboys are going to compete in the years to come. They need to change something. Like, even if they make a deep playoff run, I don't know how that's possible. If they do, something still needs to change. It's getting lucky at some point.
Yeah, well, just looking at the matchups here, assuming San Francisco beats Seattle, which I think is a very safe assumption. Seattle, for no other reason than everyone wished, God, the Rams had just pulled out that game so we could be seeing the Lions play instead of Seattle.
And the Lions have the best mentality if they would make the playoffs. They have that mentality that I think they could beat any team, and they know that going to the playoffs. Not that they would.
The happiest team in the world that Seattle is in over Detroit or even Green Bay is San Francisco. They have to be just thrilled that they get Seattle, who is, talk about a team that's stumbled their way into the playoffs. I think they're finished out 3-5, just barely squeaking out a win in overtime over the Rams.
Yeah,
really,
the Lions
was late on a throw.
The Lions could beat any team. I think they could beat the 49ers. Matter of fact, that might be my pick. I don't know. Something about the Lions. Jeremiah says the same thing. You also said it once. The Lions are scary. It has everything to do with their coaching staff. And that's why I think the Cowboys need to have their coaching staff revamped, because they need to go that way.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Lions come back next year, but you never know. And there's a good way to finish out here, because look, out of these 14 teams, 6 of them are going to be done by Monday, and that's it. You know, there's always looking forward to next year. You never know what next year holds. You never can assume just because you finish strong or because you have a good young nucleus, you never can assume that you're going to get back to where you were, whether it's injuries, whether it's coaching changes, whether it's some free agency moves that work or guys you lose. You can never assume just because you have a strong club this year that it's going to be the same way next year. So for 6 of these teams, the dream will die, and we'll have a final 8 going into next week. Before we start the playoffs, though, I teased it earlier. Do you have a Super Bowl prediction as to who wins the Super Bowl over who?
Yes, I do, and I want to make this clear. Today's date is Wednesday, January 11th. So when we clip this, you guys will know that I predicted the future. Give me Kansas City and San Francisco. Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. I'm buying into the Chiefs this year. I really like them. I put them number 1 on my power rankings. And the 49ers, let me tell you, with Mr. Irrelevant and an elite defense, one of the best defenses we have seen, the 49ers could go far. It's a matter of time. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, that defense, the entire defense. And, of course, Brock Purdy. I think if Brock Purdy makes the Super Bowl, that will be one of the best stories in NFL history. I think that if Brock Purdy retires today, he will still be the best Mr. Irrelevant to ever play. But, hey, he could live the dream and win a Super Bowl. I'm not telling you that the 49ers will win, but I'm just telling you that's going to be the matchup. Give me San Francisco and Kansas City.
All right. Preseason, I picked the Bills to win. And I have them ranked number 1. So as much as I want to pick the Bengals, because somehow that would be very different than everyone else, I got to go Bills, and I think they beat the 49ers as well. Sorry, Steve.
I don't think any non-Eagles fan is high on the Eagles. I'm sorry. I'm sure
no.
Steve knows that
I
by
don't
now.
I don't think so either. I think I certainly think they could beat the 49ers. I just don't think they match up.
Look,
I don't
if you're not an Eagles fan, I don't think you think the Eagles match up well with any.
Beat the Saints, then you can talk about winning the NFC Championship. How about that? James, another voter, he has the Bills over the 49ers as well.
It's good to see that people still pick the 49ers even with a backup quarterback. Again, this is not a normal backup quarterback. This is some starting caliber quarterback play.
I do want to say this is spinning into just what I want off-season content. Brock Purdy, if he flounders and they lose in one of the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, probably going back to the bench behind Trey Lance. But if he gets to the Super Bowl, there's no way he goes to the bench, right? I mean, this is this is like the beginning of Tom Brady's career. Tom Brady came in for Bledsoe, fumbled against the Raiders. The refs gifted him that tuck rule. Everyone inside that organization says Drew Bledsoe would have been the quarterback the next season for the Patriots, not Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Except Brady went on and led him to a Super Bowl. So the officials are to blame for Tom Brady and the disaster he's wrought on the NFL.
The 49ers have a ton of options. First of all, they have, I think, 2 first-round picks. They have their pick plus the Dolphins. I disagree. I think Purdy makes the Eagles better. That's a conversation.
I got to say this. I'll say I think Purdy's a system quarterback, and Shanahan has shown – frankly, it has shown it doesn't matter who the hell plays quarterback for his team. His offensive system is way above everyone else's.
Well, look, that's why the 49ers made the Super Bowl and Super Bowl LIV in Miami. I mean, it wasn't like Garoppolo was some great
they went to the NFC Championship last year with Garoppolo.
And last year, I forgot they went to. Yeah, and I'll tell you this much. When it comes to having a storyline, I mean, what better than Mr. Irrelevant playing in a Super Bowl and potentially winning a Super Bowl? I don't think there's a bigger accomplishment than that. Like being drafted number 1 overall and winning a Super Bowl, but being the last pick, that's really overcoming a hump. I mean, you got drafted. Tons of players don't get drafted. Tons of players don't even go to college football. But I don't know, just being the last pick in the NFL draft, that just tells something about you. I don't know. It's kind of like a joke that your name Mr. Irrelevant, but it isn't
Well,
a joke for him.
and as much as they invested in Trey Lance, you know, and that's where I'm really curious.
That's
I
they
kind of
found
want.
they found their franchise quarterback by accident, and they put so much effort into Trey Lance.
Well, and look, he's not gotten a shot really. I mean, he broke his ankle in week 2. So it's just going to be interesting the position they're in. That's why I'm not a 49ers fan. I hope they at least get to the NFC Championship game just to put them in that awkward position of figuring out
Yes.
what do we do at quarterback. And my hunch is that, the guy who doesn't get the starting job might want out.
Well, I think either of the quarterbacks, actually, Lance probably has more trade value, considering the 49ers don't make it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think Lance has trade value because Lance is not a system quarterback. I think he could fit in with a bunch of teams.
Tom Brady. Sorry, I was answering Steve. Steve was on here a couple months ago telling me how Tom Brady was the greatest thing in the universe. So
An
he
Eagles
kicked
fan
Tom
said
Brady's
that.
ass.
Well, hey, look, I mean, this is a great preview show for the playoffs, but I really want to see the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I think Brock Purdy is just something to be seen. And it just matches well with that defense, right? I mean, he's
I'm
not
going to
the,
be rooting for the AFC team almost no matter who they.
yeah, hey, I mean, talk about being a fan of the Dolphins. I mean, I have such low expectations that I'm going to be rooting for Jacksonville here. I mean, I think the fact that they turned around that franchise, the fact that they're a Florida team, I have to root for them here on FL teams, and the fact that Trevor Lawrence is living up to that number 1 overall hype. It's just amazing to see all of that come together. And look, we'll see. I mean, these are just predictions. I hope what we said becomes true because we both had some amazing insight. But yeah, we'll see. I wonder what Jeremiah, will have to speak to him. I wonder if he also has the 49ers in the Super Bowl. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you he would have had the Dolphins number 14 as well. So
Yeah, the
hey,
non-Dolphins fans.
and hey, maybe we have a Super Bowl party if the Jaguars get all the way there, but talk about unlikely. Them beating the Bills, Bengals, Chiefs.
If the Dolphins make the Super Bowl, I'll fly Jeremiah out.
The Dolphins make the Super Bowl. We're having an in-person FL team Super Bowl party.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And Steve, you can come too.
Yes, Steve, I'll pay for Steve. Maybe if it's against the Eagles, he won't show up. But but that will never happen. I think the Dolphins are more likely to make the Super Bowl than the Eagles, right? No.
Now you're just pushing buttons.
Okay.
All right. Well, this was good stuff.
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure what we're gonna have for our final 8. Maybe we'll do power rankings. Maybe we'll just break down the final 4 games next week because ranking the last 8 teams. Obviously the Eagles will be 8, and then we'll build up from there.
That's only if they get past the first round.
Well, they will. I guarantee it. They have a bye week, guys.
Okay, very good.
A good way to get past the first round. The Chiefs also, guarantee. Andy Reid and the Eagles. All right, folks. That'll do it for FL Teams Live. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you. And make sure you're subscribed to FL Teams on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. There's some other things I'm missing. Twitter. Probably some more. Isaac's just looking at me, trying to think of social media and trying not to laugh.
I'm thinking you're gonna. I thought you were gonna say Snapchat again, but no.
No, we're not on Snapchat, right? Hey, keep it here for top shelf serious content.
And Eagles news.
Yes, we'll have a breaking conference when Jalen Hurts is named MVP, which I do think he probably should be.
Yeah, no, and I'll say that one.
All right, Isaac. Well, thank you for joining me, and hey, everyone, we'll be back soon.